back to work?
Obviously, it was a lot of fun for us. You know, we've been on the road and doing paperwork and that kind of thing, so it was great to be back on the field. The kids did a really nice job carrying over from the fall. They knew what they were doing. Practice was smooth. It was just a lot of fun to watch them kind of continue on their path to learning the system, offense, defense, special teams, and learn how to practice.
Coach mentioned with Javon's situation, you're going to be kind of helping more with the outside linebackers. First of all, how supportive are you? I know you and Javon are really close, have known each other for a long time, so just having a guy like that you're close to, dealing with that, how are you handling it as a defensive coordinator right now?
Yeah, I mean, the football part we'll take care of. I mean, I've coached outside linebackers for a long time, and Zach Crespo's taken over some of the special teams duties while he's out, as well as we're all pitching in. But, I mean, I'm not really worried about the football with him. I'm worried about his wife and his children and what he needs, and just as much as we can help him out as a football family to get through this time, I think that's what we need to focus on. We'll get through the football stuff. That's not an issue. It's just we're worried about him.
Is he out there, though? I mean,
yeah, he's going to be out there when he can, and obviously, you know, and I don't want to speak about his medical condition because that's his own business, but he's got some treatments and things like that he's got to miss some things for, but he's going to be out there as much as he can be.
How much do you want this defense to get better in the spring compared to where it ended up last year?
I don't know if that's a pretty easy one, a lot better, right? Yeah, I mean, we're just continuing the progression, and I think we got some good pieces back. We need to find some new pieces, see how these young kids fit in, but overall, the progression just keeps continuing. I feel like we have a lot more time with the kids maybe than when we did last year. We were scrambling a little bit to get, you know, systems put in place and structure put in place and teaching them how to do everything. You know, like Coach Frost was saying, we're teaching them how to dress appropriately and be where they're supposed to be, and now we're pretty much football. So I think I hope there's going to be a big jump between the end of last year and then, you know, where we finish off spring this year.
Was there, from a big picture perspective, were you surprised by anything that happened last year with your own defensive performance, or disappointed, or was that or did you kind of expect it to be sort of a rocky first year?
I don't know if I knew exactly what was going to happen the first year. You know, the league has changed obviously since I played in this league 100 years ago. It's changed a lot, and you see a lot of different things every week. You see a lot of good offensive coordinators. You got to be willing to adapt. I think we've, you know, added some pieces within the scheme over the break as a staff. I think the whole staff had some good ideas on defense. And then the strength and conditioning will be a huge factor. These kids look a lot different. I've watched them in the weight room, a lot stronger, a lot more physical, and that's what we need to do to win football games in this league. We've got to be able to match up physically. Doesn't really matter what the call is right now. If we can't win those one-on-one battles up front, I think we're going to be able to win them this year.
Is that what Stilly kept saying the word knockback? We have to have better knockback. What, in your words, what does knockback mean?
Well, to me, like, you can probably play, like we've talked about, all you guys, we've all talked about this before. We want to say 3-4 or 4-3. We play some of both. You guys are smart football people. You guys see that. Whether you're lined up in a one-gap situation or a two-gap situation, for us, I know there's different ways to skin a cat, but we have to create a new line of scrimmage. And there's sometimes last year, whether they were in a one-gap situation or a two-gap situation, where they did not create a new line of scrimmage. To be able to defend some teams that are running the stretch plays, some teams that are running some power plays, you've got to get that ball bouncing around. And without penetration, it's really, really hard. So that's probably what Ben's talking about, is being able to knock back the guy in front of them, whether they're lined up in a 3 technique or a 4 technique or a 0 technique or a 1 technique, being able to just remove that, create that new line of scrimmage. Because when you knock someone back, if you're at the line of scrimmage or they're creating a new line of scrimmage on your side, you've just got to hold your gap, and that's it, period. You've just got to hang on for dear life. When you knock someone back, you have the opportunity to take on a block, strike a block, see the ball carrier, throw the blocker, and go make a play in different areas. So that's what those guys want to do. They want to knock somebody back and have the license to go make a play. And right now, they don't have that license because we're holding on for dear life a little bit.
What's Darian Daniels going to bring to just that group up front, and where do you see him fitting in the best right now on the D-line?
I think he brings some leadership. Obviously, he's been at a another institution where there's some probably different ideas, some different expectations and all those type of things. So he's been around a lot of different guys, different coaching, but I think he brings some leadership. I think those guys are responsive to him right now, and he does it in the proper manner. He doesn't come in here and try to run the whole show. He wants to fit in with the group and do what he can and help the team. And so far, I mean, we've only been out there in underwears, but he's looked good. He's looked bouncy. He's running around. He's playing well. So I'm excited for him. We'll see as we get full pads on what he's got.
Are you thinking he could play any of those positions up front?
Yeah, I think his body type is more of an interior guy, but I think he's got enough bounce where you can place him outside. So, man, you know.
Okay.
Do you want to keep Carlos at a nose, or would you like to play him more outside this year?
What I want to do is have the three best people on the field at all times. So if Carlos is one of the best three and he's got to be at nose, great. If a new guy comes in, you know, maybe the fourth guy in the rotation is another nose, then Carlos has got to be able to place him in, just like all those guys. I don't want to have to say, okay, the nose is down, let's get the next nose in. Let's get the next best guy in so that we can rotate those guys through. So I think he, along with all of them, need to learn how to move around a little bit.
How was it that you guys kind of landed on Tony? I mean, how's he kind of been with the group, and what's he kind of brought so far?
Well, he's been great with the group. He's a great person, first and foremost, and I think that's, you know, one of the things that drew us to him. We kind of came along him. Coach Frost, we had a national search. We talked to a lot of people. A lot of people were recommended to us. He was recommended to us by a guy that we really trust. So we gave him as fair a shot as anybody. And there were some guys that did a really good job with phone interviews or in-person interviews, and his was the best. And he's going to bring some new things. You know, they were really good on defense at Cal. Run a similar system. Justin does a good, really good job on defense there. So he's got some things that can probably help our scheme, just some different techniques or maybe some different adjustments. And so he's had some good ideas right now, but he's kind of learning what we do, and then he's adding as he can.
How important? Okay, now when you start, you're in a position where you're going to be hiring guys or having a lot of input in. How big is it? How big is chemistry in that discussion to you, like staff chemistry?
I think it's huge.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, we've got the last 3 or 4 years, we've got a really good thing going, and trust is a huge thing right now. So where you can trust somebody to, first and foremost, carry out the vision that Coach Frost sets for the entire coaching staff and the team, and then the vision that we set out on defense. Because when we sit in that meeting room, whether it's my idea or Tony's idea or Travis's or Barrett's or Joe Bond's, when we leave that room, it's our idea. And you have to trust that everybody's going to carry out that vision. And I think Tony's a guy that fits in with our group. He fits in with the way that we want players treated, the way we want the other coaches treated, the way we want media and staff and people outside of our immediate cocoon treated. So it was just kind of a natural fit.
How many different guys did you interview for the position? I know you can't go into names, but what was the number of guys you talked to?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot that I talked to on the phone. I couldn't even begin to tell you the number. And then, there was 4 or 5 guys that came in-house.
Is that how you guys wanted to do it? I mean, usually sometimes you just go right to a buddy and hire the buddy, but you guys, it seemed like you did a full-scale, coast-to-coast search for the position.
Yeah, I think if there would have been somebody that both Scott and I knew personally, that we had worked with before, that we just felt like that's the guy, you can do that. But I don't think there was a guy that we just felt overwhelmingly about, so we wanted to make sure now with Tony and a couple other guys, we had some high recommendations, but we wanted to do due diligence and make sure that it was the correct guy and not just hire somebody when we had the chance to interview many.
I know pass rush is way more complex than that guy can get the quarterback, but which guy can get the quarterback on the team?
Well, we're going to find out here very quickly. Obviously, some guys that you want to come out of that position. You want to see, Alex Davis progress, Ferd progress, Caleb Tanner progress, and then all the interior rush guys. The Davis brothers have some pretty good interior pass rush. Ben Stilley kind of has a combo on pass rush. You want to see what Darian and Damian Daniels can do along with a few others. But those edge guys got to really develop this year. And maybe a couple of these freshmen that we got coming in too, you never know. I mean, I'm going to see what they got.
And JoJo's going to play some OLB, it sounds like. What did you like about him to put him there versus, say, a safety position this spring?
Well, I mean, I think JoJo right now, he's got enough cover skills to play safety, but he's got enough physicalness to play on the line of scrimmage or closer to the ball. And JoJo, I think we all need to. I didn't know him as well when I got here, but he had about 2 years where he wasn't lifting weights, and now he's on full feed and full lift, and he's continuing to grow and grow. I mean, I think he's probably up close to 230 pounds now. So he's a guy that was a multi-skilled guy that I think is going to continue to get bigger and stronger and more physical. So moving him closer to the ball was an advantage to us.
So that's it. I mean, would you say he's an outside linebacker now?
I would say that he is playing outside linebacker right now, but he's going to have to do both. You know, if you're playing against a spread team, you might want JoJo at outside linebacker and have your bigger outside backer playing 5 technique, whatever you want to call it. When you're playing against a really big team, you might want to put JoJo back at safety to come downhill and fill that thing and have 2 real big edges in there.
Corner wasn't regarded as a strength going into last year. I think people look at it as a different now. Would that be the strength of the defense now, you think, corner? Would you go that far?
Yeah, those guys up front are going to be really good too. Their depth, and they have the most experience. They've got a ways to go, but I think that's going to be a strong point. And corner definitely can be. We don't get enough picks for my liking yet. You know what I mean? We're breaking up a lot of footballs, but I'd like to see some more interceptions, and we got to tackle better at corner. But that's going to be a spot where I think we have some strength.
How Travis Fisher said back in January that Cam Taylor is going to be a surprise, that you can use him in a lot of different places. Cam's a kid's got a lot of energy, a lot of fire. How valuable has he been to this team, even though he hasn't necessarily played a lot, but the ways in which maybe he's kept guys accountable and just the way that he's come along as a player?
Yeah, a lot of leadership from a young guy's perspective, right? I think a lot of those kids in that class kind of follow him a little bit, but he does have some definite leadership ability. And then his ability to, even last year, even though you may not be starting, his ability to play either corner or safety or nickel, which we saw him a lot in, and his ability to play on all 4 special teams was huge for us last year. Sometimes last year, even though he had the ability to play, we didn't always feel like it was fair to him because he wasn't ready, because he was learning nickel, he was learning corner, he was learning safety. So we kind of used him in specific roles, but I think he's going to be he's got to be a predominant player on defense this year.
Do you think you could use him in corner, safety, or nickel, any of those?
Yeah, I think right now he's got a much better grasp. You know, when he came in, he learned how to play corner. And then Lamar and DiCaprio came along a little bit, and along with Erik and some of the other guys. So then we kind of taught him how to play safety, and then we taught him how to play nickel. So now he's kind of got the whole system, and he knows what he's got to do in all 3 positions.
I know depth charts aren't set or anything, but would your first group at safety be Deontay and Cam, or who would be your 2 safeties that you would say this is group 1 that goes out there right now?
Right now, we don't have a group 1 or 2. Now Cam could be, but I also want to play Cam at corner in the spring. I don't want to pigeonhole him in the spring because you got a lot of new guys coming, and I don't know where they're going to fit either. So I want Cam to go out there with the 1 sometime at safety and get some 2 and 3 reps at corner. I want him to be out there with the 1s at corner sometime and get him in the 2 and 3 reps at safety. I want him to play some nickel sometimes. So he's not. I don't think he doesn't have a home right now.
What percentage were you in nickel last year? Do you have that number in your, like, how many? I mean, is it over 50% that you probably had to play nickel in the conference?
Well, it got skewed a little bit because some of those games we thought JoJo could match up enough. So we were playing some nickel defense with some base bodies in there. So I don't know what the percentage would be right now. But it was a good number. It was a good number, especially against those 11 personnel teams. We probably should have played more, to be honest with you, at the beginning. We weren't far enough in the system where the transition was just easy for the guys to get in and out. We probably should have played more against Purdue and some of those types of teams. So.
Coach, you lost Antonio, Trey, Aaron at safety. Just having a whole new unit back there, is this something you've done before?
Yeah, I mean, college football isn't like the NFL. You know what I mean? You don't get to pick guys up off the waiver wire, so you got to develop players. And usually, when you lose guys, I always hate to lose them, especially good players. But I always see it as an opportunity. We recruited these guys for a reason. It's an opportunity to get other players in there that could possibly be better players. Maybe they will be, maybe they won't, but that's kind of up to the coaches to develop those kids. So I always look at it as an opportunity when you replace a whole unit. And sometimes you don't have to unteach anybody anything, you know what I mean?
When you have these D linemen, guys were talking about it today, they play for 4 different D line coaches. What goes through your mind in that? How do you regard that? Is that a challenge? Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Or is it just is what it is?
For the kids?
Yeah, for the kids.
Well, I mean, once again, you can look at it as a positive or a negative, right? Negative that, sure, they didn't have consistency throughout their career, and nobody likes that. But also a positive, you got coached by a lot of really good football coaches, and you get an opportunity to learn something that maybe Tony knows that Mike didn't. Mike taught him something that the last coach didn't know or didn't teach him. So I think there's positives and negatives.
How do you look at it in your role?
I mean, for me, it's good. Like, obviously, Mike was a really good friend of mine, and he's a really good football coach. I did not want to lose him, but I felt like as soon as we interviewed Tony and we got to know him, I felt like Tony's going to add a lot to this program, and he's going to add some things that I didn't know probably that they did at Cal that can tweak our defense. So I always want to try to find the positive in all the situations, and I think there definitely is some positives. Yeah. But there's certainly we'd want to keep our coaching staff intact as long as possible. Now, we all have to be realistic. When you have a good coaching staff, people are going to get poached. Yep. And nobody wants to leave anywhere, but sometimes there's just, great opportunities. And, when you're at a place like Nebraska, the spotlight's always going to be on you, so your good coaches are always in the spotlight. So hopefully we don't lose any more for a long time, but it's reality.
Being at a place like Nebraska, though, compared to other places, when a spot opened, you couldn't just go out and call anyone because financially you might have been limited how much you could spend to get a guy. I mean, how different was it now? Like, you know what, we can pretty much call anyone we want because we have the resources to go after guys at other Power 5 jobs.
Yeah, I don't think money is as huge of an issue as, like, you could talk to some guys. We've been at places before where we could call a guy and they're just not interested in going to that school. Most of the guys I talked to, no matter how much they were making or before they even talked to me about money, they were just interested because it's Nebraska. So I think just being at Nebraska, money aside, was a huge factor in who we could hire. I think we had the opportunity to get just about anybody in the country we wanted just because it is Nebraska, because of the tradition, because of being in the Big Ten, because of the resources available to you at this institution.
Stability that you guys have, too, as a staff.
Absolutely.
What was it about Coach Tuioti in particular that really intrigued you?
Obviously, like we talked about before, he got a high recommendation from someone I really trust. I knew he knew, Coach Frost, we talked about it. What do you want in a coach? We want a coach that, A, first off, is a good man. That's going to treat the kids right. B, they know their craft, they know technique, and they know how to teach it. And C, we don't want, everybody on the staff to just be a yes man. We want somebody that's been in another similar scheme but with some different tweaks so they can maybe help us and have some of their own ideas and help some new blood get into our system. And I think he fit all those boxes.
Hey, Nick Henrich is a newcomer, graduated early, middle linebacker. There's some opportunity there. What do you like about Nick, and will he get some good? What kind of reps will he get this spring?
Yeah, he's going to get as many reps as anybody. Especially with the numbers being a little down in the inside linebacker room, that opportunity is big. Right now, I like that he's running around and playing fast. He's making a lot of mistakes, but that's great. I want him to keep making mistakes. We talked about it. I said just make some new ones tomorrow. Let's fix the ones you made today and let's make some new ones tomorrow. But I love the way he's playing. I love his intensity. He loves football. He's a smart football player. He can make the calls, and it's not like over his head. He's not swimming in the deep water yet. He's just kind of looks like he's another guy, and I think he's going to continue to progress.
Chris Walker was a guy last year that switched from offense to defense. Is there anyone else this spring that you maybe trying to play on the defensive side of the ball?
I think right now we're going to try Chad Ailey out that DB from wide receiver, but I don't think there's been a lot of movement that way.
You had a lot of guys from last year's recruiting class that basically missed last season with injury. You had Wilderman, Rogers, Kim Jones, a lot of those guys. I mean, how are they kind of get your first look at them really on the field? How's it been with those guys and what they're doing so far, I guess?
Yeah, Casey and Tate. We're going to kind of ease back in, being in that front line area. It's there's a lot of banging going on, especially with no shoulder pads. So we're going to ease those guys back in. But I liked what I saw from those guys last year. I watched the scout team tape to see what our guys look like, our young guys, and they did a great job down there. Cam Jones, we didn't look at him all year, as you guys know. He had his first day back yesterday, and he looked like he was doing a good job. I mean, he's running around. He can move really well. He's got good spatial awareness. He's got good short-range bursts. So we'll see once we get some contact. But I'm looking forward to watching those guys.
Was Cam a guy that could have probably played last year for you guys? I know you were really high on him.
I mean, I loved him in high school, and then he played. He had played like one practice, so I don't know if he could have played last year.
Ross called him a bright spot though yesterday. Was that kind of the takeaway you had as well? It's like, I don't know. He just said it was a bright spot to see him in practice yesterday.
Yeah, it was, because I think he's a kid that loves football, and you take something like that away from the kid, and usually that their demeanor kind of goes down, and his demeanor's back up now that he gets to play football again. He was running around like a wild man yesterday. He's like Nick, he made a lot of mistakes, but he was smoking around, and he was flying around, having fun, just playing hard, and he looked like the guy we saw in high school film.
The length you guys have added to your defense year over year, I mean, is that kind of what you wanted, just kind of adding the type of length on the D-line, even and the secondary, and some of the recruits you're bringing in?
Yeah, two things we wanted to add was speed and length on defense. The length part it's an interesting thing because people always say, they love length, but I don't think anybody realizes why. It's
Why is it?
Your playing radius. When your playing radius is real big, you're decreasing your chance of error by a lot. By a lot. Especially with the spread teams. Especially those guys on the edge and in the D line. When they can touch the wall from here, that's a big edge to be set. Those guys making tackles in space, safeties and linebackers. Those tiny little short guys. They're you don't want me playing out there. You know what I mean? I want real long guys because that playing radius just decreases your chance for error by a ton.
Makes sense.
Brant Banks, probably the biggest guy, one of the biggest you guys added. I mean, what's he brought, and what do you like about his upside?
Well, his upside is tremendous. He's got a ways to go. Usually those real big D linemen, it takes him a little bit of time to get used to, because big O lineman, big D lineman, I think that's the hardest spot to play when you early enroll. Corners, receivers, you can jump out there, you take the top off, you go cover somebody, man, everybody, he looks really great. When you've been bigger and stronger than everybody else your whole life, and then you line up against, Farniak or Hymas or, your Will Farniak last year, and you got Carlos Davis on your head for the first time, that's a tough rodeo to compete in. You know what I mean? So I think that's the hardest thing to do is enroll early and be an O&D lineman. So he's got a lot of growing to do. But I love the kid. I love his ability. I think his upside is tremendous.
Coach, I apologize if you already answered this, but Coach DeWitt in his situation, obviously your thoughts are with him, but from a football practical standpoint, how do you share the load and make it a group effort to move forward as he's battling his own battle?
Yeah, I think on the special teams front, he's done a great job of getting the system in, and he's already, from day one, he has already assigned us duties and guys to kind of be in charge of each unit, just in case he had to be out recruiting or something like that. So that's been an quote-unquote easy transition. Without him there, it's definitely different. He's the leader of that unit, so we're trying to, make him proud, and keep the guys playing like they should be. And on defense, we'll move those guys around. I'll help with his position group. But like I said before, I think that's the easy part. getting through the football. The hard part is helping his family and him get through a tough time right now.
Tyron Ferguson was a guy last year that I think he missed about 6-7 games for you, but if he would have been healthy, what kind of year do you think he would have had last year?
Yeah, Ferg, he came out hot in the first few games, and then he had some kind of nagging injuries that took place, and he was really not himself for a few games. And then at the end of the year, he kind of came back on. So I'm encouraged by him. He wants to learn, man. He's in there studying. He works hard in the weight room. He works hard at practice. So I'm looking forward for him to have a really good year. And I think, somebody asked about pass rush. I think he's a guy that's got ability to rush the passer, and he just needed reps. That pass rush, I don't know who said it, maybe Sam or somebody, but when you rush the passer, you've got to see yourself on film, and you've got to see the things that you're doing to correct them. And he just didn't have a lot of that film, and we're already kind of getting him more reps throughout this spring and these individuals and all those types of things. So I'm looking for a big year from him.
I don't know really how to put this. I mean, you're the leader of the defense, and you did. I mean, when Dawson left, that's a challenge for you. But obviously, there's a personal challenge with Jovan. How does that affect you? Your stress level? I mean, does it put a little added stress on you? Did you look at it like that or not?
Yeah, I think any time.
I mean, you're the leader.
Yeah, and I think what we treat. I would consider all of our coaches and all our players family. And anytime a family member has a difficulty or you lose a family member, it certainly causes a little stress. But also, when you accept the role as a leader, the kids need to see me in a certain demeanor too, and I can't be stressed. I've got to help them through the situation. It becomes not about me. Just like when you become a dad, right? It ain't about me anymore. It's about my kids. It's about our players. It's about our coaches. So I don't get to be stressed. I need to help relieve the stress off of everybody else. That when you accept a leadership position, that's just life. So does it cause me a little stress? Probably, but I don't get to think about that anymore.
Coach, it was our first chance to see Ben Stilley since the season. He's made some big games.
Yeah, he's done.
What has he done? And just from a physical standpoint, he looks like a different dude.
Well, I think if you see, I don't know who you guys saw today. Who was in here?
Stilley,
Mulberry
was here, and Lamar, Caprio, and Lamar.
Yeah, so just about all those kids, like when you're going to see them in practice, I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised at what they all look like. They've all made tremendous gains in the weight room, and some of those skill guys have lost a little fat, put on a little muscle, and gained a lot in their quickness and in straight ahead speed. But those defensive linemen, those offensive linemen, tight ends, linebackers, they all look much more like what we're used to.
So on the field, you see, if my kids lose weight, I don't know this because I see them every day. Can you notice a difference though on the practice field?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And more or less on the practice field, because everybody's kind of made those gains. When I see him walk down the hallway, you know what I mean? I'm like, "Geez, Ben, what do you weigh now?" And he'll tell me. I'm like, "I don't know." So it's been a good thing. Yeah.
All right, thank you.